Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Low Season Traveller Insider Guides. I'm Jed Brown, your host for this week's episode, and today we're heading over to Northern Thailand. Now, our regular listeners will know that we've recently been collaborating with former BBC journalist Nikki Morrison as she travels around the world during the low season months in each destination. She's currently in Thailand, where she met up with Bruce Haxton from the Tuk Tuk Club as she joined their 10-day adventure through Northern Thailand and Chiang Mai. Here, she speaks with Bruce as the tour came to its conclusion just this past week. Enjoy.
Well, Bruce, I'm not sure if you should be talking to me or me talking to you, having just literally landed this second. But let's go back to some basics. How did the Tuk Tuk Club come into being?
Crikey, I'll give you the abridged version, otherwise we'll be here long after sunset. By 2015, I'd been in the travel industry for quite a while, and I was feeling there wasn't much in the way of excitement delivered, particularly in Thailand. I felt that Thailand's an amazing country, and I thought as an industry we weren't offering the best of the best to people. There was nothing, in my view, very different. And I just was really keen to do something different, probably selfishly, to keep myself excited and interested. I'd always enjoyed tuk-tuks. I'd been to India and I'd learnt about a business that did something a little bit different over there. So back in 2016 I had this germ of this idea that could we do adventures by tuk-tuk through the mountains of Northern Thailand. And that's where it came from. We did a recce, a friend of mine and we borrowed a tuk-tuk in Bangkok and drove up to Chiang Mai, spent 3 weeks driving through the mountains, and when I got home I couldn't stop smiling. And my wife and children were like, "Wow, Dad, what have you been on?" And I said, "No, I've just had the best experience." And ditto, the guy that was with me, my wife's cousin, he couldn't stop talking about it either. So I thought, crikey, if I enjoy it, then surely people who don't live here and haven't been as fortunate to see all the places I've been to in time, they're going to love it. So that's where it started.
So Thailand is stuck in a bit of a rut when it comes to tourism?
I need to watch my words.
Maybe the world's stuck in a rut.
I don't want to be rude. There's some amazing. Even the businesses that I think are stuck in a rut are great businesses. They deliver wonderful holidays for many, many people. But if you look at many of the offerings in Thailand, it's the same sort of stuff that was offered 25 years ago, and they're great. But I think there's much more to Thailand than the sites, the famous sites, which are all on their own superb. Like if you come to Chiang Mai, I'd say always go to Wat Doi Suthep. It's the most famous temple in the province. It's beautiful, but that's scratching the surface of Chiang Mai. And I wanted to help people get into sounds like such a cliche, but get into the soul of Thailand. And I first came here in 1988, and it really wowed me. It was like an amazing experience. And when you travel in the mountains of the north, the feeling is very similar to that, which, gosh, how many years ago is that? The similar sort of feeling to what I got nearly 35 years ago, and I wanted to help people have that sort of experience here.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because what you're offering is kind of somewhere, having come along and done it in the low season, you're kind of crossing over between off the beaten path and low season. How do those two things mesh together, do you think?
Gosh, that's a good question. Where we first came from on this is off the beaten path. And we're not so off the beaten path to make it inaccessible to people. I don't want to do a Bear Grylls type of thing where most people, there's some amazing treks where you literally have to hack through the jungle, but that's very, very niche. So we wanted to get people away from the norm, and the low season side is actually a happy, accident's not the right word, a happy coincidence. And the reason I say that is because traditionally in Chiang Mai, the high season is November through February. And that's the winter, and that's because it's lovely and cold in the evenings, and blue skies and really, really awesome weather. And that's when Thai people come to the north. So businesses in Thailand have always promoted the north because that's when they would come to the north. But actually, I mean, you would tell me better, Nikki, because you've just travelled in the rainy season. But as a team, we say the rainy season is the best time to travel here, which is the low season. Not just because there are less people, but because everything looks... I'm looking over your shoulder and it's so green and so like, wow. And in the high season, by the time you get to January, it's not rained for 3 months. So everything's still beautiful, but everything's much browner. In the rainy season, those rice fields are amazing, aren't they?
Well, we're in a strange situation, aren't we, in that I've flown out from the UK where we're experiencing a drought. So the UK at the moment is yellow, and I've come back to this lush greenness, which is really familiar to me. But I suppose my question would be, I've had a great time. We've had the highs of, amazing rainstorms and thunderstorms that are really exciting. We've also had some great sunshine and a couple of days really chilling out. So it's a nice combination. But I haven't been here in the high season, so how would it contrast?
I think the big difference is that in the winter, the evenings are much colder. So when in Meklang Lurong, where you stayed for 2 nights, you do need a jacket, and I would need a hat. It's pretty cold.
Yeah.
The sky's almost always blue, so there are no clouds in the sky. So you get those views forever. When you were the drive you did between Mae Hong Son and Bai, those beautiful views across the hills rolling away.
Yes.
There's no cloud. It's just like forever views and that's spectacular. You get that. I guess the classic photo of Southeast Asia is those blue skies and green forests. So that's the main difference. It's busier, but where we go, you wouldn't really notice that. You would in Chiang Mai City. But other than that, it's pretty quiet where we go year-round. So the big difference is the weather, really. Yeah,
and I mean, the weather has been pretty full on. There are a couple of times where it felt like I was sitting in the middle of a kind of car wash or something like that, especially in a tiny little tuk-tuk. But to be honest, even when we were in the biggest rainstorm, most of the time we weren't driving in them. So I don't know if the gods were being kind to us, but...
Well, we plan.
You planned. Well, the rain came down either when we were underground or when we just arrived somewhere. I didn't actually get wet, and the one rainstorm we had when we were actually in the tuk-tuk, do you know what? We put down one side, and if there'd been somebody else in there, they'd have been getting wet, but I wasn't, So it was actually hard work on Yaya, who was having to drive through it all. And you don't have demisters in tuk-tuks, do you?
No, you don't. No, that would be really challenging to develop those. I mean, because we operate year-round.
Yeah.
So we've had trips where, we've had to pull over at the nearest sort of village store or somewhere and pull over for 40 minutes when it's been really intense. But what we've found is that our travellers go, wow, because even if you do get a bit wet, if you pull all the rain shields down, you can stay pretty dry.
Yeah.
But even when we do get wet, people go, once you've dried off and once you've had a shower and everything, people go, wow, wasn't that amazing?
It's quite hard to explain to people in the UK because you're right, you're not getting those amazing blue skies. You are on occasions, but you're getting kind of, when we were up in, I won't be able to remember the name, but when we were right up in the mountains and we had the mist clinging around and it looked absolutely fabulous.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It did look really beautiful. But I suppose it can be quite flat and it can be quite grey. And to try and...
That's actually quite rare.
Oh, okay.
So usually in the rainy season, the vast majority is you'll have a storm and then it clears up. And you might have the odd cloud around, but you'll have blue skies. This last week we've had some days where it's been grey all day.
Yeah.
Down in Chiang Mai City, say, day before yesterday, felt like one of those English any day of the year in England where it's a bit grey and a bit drizzly all sort of day.
Yeah.
Usually maybe less than 10 days like that a year.
Oh, okay, that's
so it's quite
interesting.
rare.
Because when we were up at Doi Inthan on the highest mountain in Thailand, I mean, that was like being in kind of some sort of
because you're in the cloud, aren't you?
We were absolutely in the cloud for us there. But the point I was going to make is that in terms of photographs, it's very hard to persuade UK people that they're not looking at a cold day because our brain goes grey cold, grey cold. Whereas in actual fact, it was kind of like, a little bit of relief because it's still hot, isn't it? And actually being up in the mountains, as we came down today, you could feel the temperature rising, and I was thinking, can we turn around and go back up?
Go back up. You know what, Nikki? It's one of the hardest things. It's so ingrained that the rainy season is the low season, and low season. It's ingrained in people's minds that low season equates to don't go, and that doesn't just apply to Thailand. That's around the world, and that's something low season traveller are doing a great job of trying to don't
Change
like
the
word.
mindset, really.
Change the I was
Yeah.
going to say educate, but that's not the right word. That's a bit patronising, isn't it? But change the mindset, and it's almost like people have to come and experience it, and then they go, okay, you were right.
Yes.
Because sometimes people might think that you're only trying to get people to come in the low season to fill your spaces for the low season, but genuinely that's not the case. It's just a different experience.
And if you, I mean, I was travelling on my own. If I'd joined the tour with other people, that would have been really nice. If I'd come with a group of friends, I mean, seriously, I've had pools to myself in the most amazing resorts. I've wandered into restaurants and cafes where you're literally the only person, but not in that kind of like, ooh,
Yeah, not in a sad way.
Yeah, no. Well, if it is, it's my problem.
Well, yeah, with you. But a good example is yesterday I took two people out for a day trip, and we went from here up to Mae Klang Luang through that same route, and we had sunshine at the start of the day, and then we were in the clouds, and then we had a rainstorm, and then we had some drizzle, and then at the checkpoint the national park guide said, hey, good news, he said, the rest of the road there's no rain. And I was like, wow, how do you know that? But I guess that's why he works for the national parks. It was spot on, and by the time we got to Mae Klang Luang it was blue skies, and the guys I was with were saying, wow, what an awesome day, because they had everything. And it was when it was raining, it was cool, but it wasn't cold. They were still in t-shirts and comfortable.
Yeah, I've been in shorts the whole time and not needed any extra layers, even when we were up at Doi Inthanon, which was kind of, I think some people would, well, all the Thais are putting on jumpers.
Yeah, they'd have,
and I've seen a dog in a coat, and I'm kind of
that's
like...
a big thing here, yeah, dogs do need their coats in the winter, the cooler months.
In the cooler months. Whereas a Brit, you're kind of going, literally, I'm melting,
But I mean, we're very lucky where we go that over-tourism hasn't yet been a thing in the places we go. Now that's because we choose where we go. That's not. It is off the beaten track. But for example, Mae Hong Son province, where you spent day 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 5, 6 days in Mae Hong Son province, is the most wonderful part of Thailand. Lots and lots of people go to Bai, where you spent 2 nights.
Yeah.
But they don't go further.
Yes.
And that's such a shame, because Mae Hong Son is like, Chiang Mai's beautiful, and then Mae Hong Son is like another step up.
It's a little gem. It just sits in that bowl, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Such a discovery, and it was a long haul to get there that day, but it really was the reward at the end of the day.
It's a beautiful place, and the whole province is amazing. There's so much to explore there, whether you're with people like us or whether you're under your own steam or hiking or whatever. You could spend months in Mae Hong Son and not discover everything.
And I think I came across a young British couple who were trying to get into the real Thailand. They were on a month-long trip, and they were saying that they'd come out of Chiang Mai because they felt they were sort of still in quite a touristy environment, and then they'd come up into the mountains, they'd hired a car, and I thought that was brilliant. But the one thing that really struck me was that if you're in an aircon vehicle driving around, you know, the tuk-tuks have been a full-on feast for the senses. You know, wood smoke, the smell of cooking, the smell of mint, the smell of flowers, the wind.
Don't forget the smell of the cows up in the mountains. You know when a herd of cows is on the way, don't you?
Do you know what? This is going to sound weird. I'm from Devon. The red soil and the cows, quite homely.
I love the smell of cows. That's quite weird, isn't it? I shouldn't say that out loud, really.
No, I think a lot of my family listening would go, "Oh yeah, we love a cow."
But that is a thing. I'm glad. It's really. It's
you're
cool
very much more in
that.
touch, because you're as opposed to being on a bike where you've got the cooling breeze but you're doing all the work. The tuk-tuk's quite nice because you're not working particularly hard. You're getting the breeze, but you're not so disconnected from your environment. That you're not
And
really
I can tell you from personal experience that cycling that route is really good.
Yeah.
But it's unbelievably hard work.
Yes.
So you're just thinking about, can I keep my legs going by the last 20 kilometres? There's a lot of climbing to do.
You need to recap some highlights for me. We've done 800 kilometres.
Roughly.
Any idea how many curves? Because I've never been to a country where you measure your distance in curves before.
No, and we're trying to find out what constitutes a curve. How many angles of turn is a curve? Because you can buy stickers that go from 1,800 to 3,760. And we add in a whole load of extra curves because we go the back road to Doi Inthanon and then to Mae Saliang rather than the main road. So you're probably going to be 5,000 curves.
Let's say 5,000.
Because it's a nice number, isn't it? But also the beauty is, isn't it, that car sickness isn't a thing in a tuk-tuk.
No.
Whereas for a lot of people suffer from car
I
sickness
can
in the
vouch for that.
minivans.
I'm terrible.
And Yaya, who's driven you for the last 10 days,
The demon that is Yaya.
she suffers terribly from travel sickness. But as you've seen, she doesn't find it. So if you suffer from motion sickness, you need to travel by tuk-tuk.
And I have to say, day one, Yaya was like a kind of chauffeur come guide. Day two, she was becoming kind of, like a warrior. And by day three, she was absolutely epic because we were in the middle of that storm and she was still battling away regardless.
Yeah.
We shouldn't talk for too much longer. But what do you think is the future for the Tuk Tuk Club?
Our main goal is, this sounds a little bit airy-fairy probably, but our main goal is to continue helping people discover the area of Thailand that we've fallen in love with. So it's not just myself, the whole team adore Northern Thailand. It's why we get up and do what we do every morning. So if we have a mission, it is to help people experience what we've been lucky enough to experience and open their eyes to something very different in Thailand rather than Bangkok beaches and temples. There's much more to Thailand than rushing to the beach and touring around Bangkok. You could spend a lifetime up here and still never see half of what you need to see.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been lovely to be a member of your club.
Thank you very much for joining us, Nikki.
So there you have it. I must say, we've been in touch with the Tuk Tuk Club for some years now at Low Season Traveller, and we just love Bruce's passion for truly responsible and immersive tourism. And if you like the sound of Northern Thailand, you can learn more about the region and what it's like during its low season months on lowseasontraveller.com, and of course thetuktukclub.com, where you can book your place on your own tour. But that's our show for this week. Thanks as always for your company, and if you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean the world to us if you could leave us both a positive rating and a review on your podcast app. Have a great week wherever you are. Stay healthy, stay safe, keep your travel dreams alive, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn to be the first to hear our latest low season stories, articles and guides. Finally, remember that travel is always better and fairer for the planet, the local communities and you the travellers when it's without the crowds.